Welcome in, everyone. We're going to do a deep dive and talk some Canadian egress capacity on pipelines. Also, this will be an introductory video where you can be introduced to Plainview Analytics probably for the first time. And we'll introduce ourselves, and I'll give everyone an idea and the market an idea of what we have to offer as far as services and data, hopefully going forward for a while. So let's kick right off. I'm Matt Lewis. I'm the founder of Plainview Energy Analytics. I've been in the midstream space for a while. Took a bit of a break the past few years, but have been working on this for at least a year plus behind the scenes. And we'll go into some of the stuff that we're doing. Just to do a quick let's say introduction to the product. So what you'll see here is going to be our flagship product that's behind me here. This is our client portal where we have oil pipeline flows, really a lot of the data that I used to use when I was analyzing midstream pipelines, but we're focused on oil pipelines in the midstream space. Really our goal is to aggregate, clean, organize, and then put it into a visualization that makes it easy for clients to get to this oil data for pipelines, and then expand to maybe some other areas that feed the pipelines and things like that down the road. Decided to come out and do a video today because I think there's been some interesting stuff that's been talked about for Canadian oil egress. So let's dive into that, and I'll fade myself out here. And what you see here is, again, like I said, our flagship tool. So when you want to take a look at some of the oil pipeline flows and analyze those, this is what we use at Plainview Energy. So with earnings wrapping up here for 4Q, there's been a lot of talk about Canadian egress. So as most of you guys know, Trans Mountain has come online, and I'll just pull the system up here. Trans Mountain's expansion has come online recently, almost a year ago now, but been online recently. And you can see we have the capacity and flows here for Trans Mountain, and you can see when the twin came online, there's now, it appears to be some extra space out of Canada. I know that Enbridge's Mainline, at least a few months in late 2024, was not apportioned. So you do have a little bit of excess capacity out of Canada right now, it appears, based on the pipeline flows, or at least in late 2024 you did. But a lot of people are asking, hey, with this area that's always grown into its pipeline capacity, what do we see down the road? Do we need to start planning for new egress pipeline capacity starting in the next few years, so 2027, 2028. And I know that Enbridge talked about potentially some expansions on their main line. They've talked about that for a few quarters now, where they could do some brownfield expansions on their main line, and is also on their Express Plat system. I know the Trans Mountain's talked about a potential brownfield expansion. This is a 36-inch pipeline, so the heavy crude going through it is only around, I think, 600,000 barrels a day, somewhere around there. So theoretically, they would have some space to, at least, I'm not a pipeline engineer, but 36-inch pipelines can usually take quite a bit more, even heavy crude, than 600,000 barrels a day. So there's potentially something there, obviously some regulatory risk along with that. But what was interesting and what flew under the radar for me over the last week was there was an open season announced for another project that I found pretty interesting. And like I said, I think it flew under the radar of the market and not a lot of people saw it. So we'll just take a look here. It looks like there's an open season that's been put up, and it was publicized on Energy Transfer's website, of a pipeline called Big Sky Pipeline System. So this would be a combination or a joint tariff between South Bow's Keystone Pipeline and Energy Transfer. They're not very specific, but some of their joint ventures and or their pipelines. So again, if you read this press release, it's not terribly specific on what's actually going to happen here. So we can theorize a few things or try to do an educated guess on what they're planning here. I do know there is at least one third-party news source out there that's claiming sources indicate this is going to be some combination of a new pipeline, potentially existing Keystone Pipeline, and then DAPL / ETCOP, which is operated by Energy Transfer and owned by that JV that Energy Transfer heads up. So I thought this was an interesting one. Again, it didn't get a lot of traction. I didn't hear a lot about it in the space, so I thought it would be a good one to do an introductory video on, to kind of showcase what we can do with our tool, how to make it potentially easier for our potential clients' lives down the road, if you were to ever subscribe, and just do a video on it and talk about it, because I think it is an interesting potential project. So I think it's important to talk about first, and we'll go back to the tool here, and I'll close out Trans Mountain. I think it's important to talk about why this project could be successful. And to do that, let's bring up Keystone, and we'll bring up their Canadian system and their US system. As you can see, we have the receipt points are in green, the delivery points are in red. Sometimes you'll see some orange ones. Those will be receipt and delivery points on the pipeline. And then you have the flow points on here as well. There's quite a bit of those. Why this pipeline will be successful, I think it's important to go back and think about what makes a successful, how you can outcompete your potential competitors in an open season. And a lot of times you can do that by utilizing underutilized pipeline capacity space. So that was the whole plan with Keystone XL. And so I'm going to bring up just a whiteboard so I can draw on the snipping tool. Keystone XL was going to be a pipe that traversed this way, and it was new pipe that was going to tie into Steel City, Nebraska. Now, what's important about this, and what I want to highlight here, is the pipeline actually separates at Steel City. So one leg goes off and feeds Midwest refineries, Wood River Refinery in Illinois, a large terminal, Patoka in Illinois, where it can go to Midwest refineries or go to other places, and it has optionality to go down to the Gulf. So what you had here, and we'll look at this on the flows, is today what we have here is we have a pipeline in Keystone that's essentially full on the northern portion. So here's the capacity, the orange line, the flows are in blue. You can see that it's basically a full pipeline. Now what's interesting is once you get to this separation or the split in the pipeline, is we can't actually see the flows on this. There's no publicly available data that I'm aware of that shows these. But we do know, again, the northern section is about 600,000 barrels a day of capacity, and that's maxed out. It's a 30-inch line. The leg that goes into Illinois is part of the way, I believe, is 30 inches. I think it's shorter going to Patoka, but it has roughly about 500,000 barrels a day of capacity. So you have 600 coming down of capacity, you have 500 going to Illinois, and you have an extra, let's call it another 600 going down to Cushing area and eventually goes to the Gulf. So you have 600 of capacity coming into Steel City and 1.1 million barrels a day going out. So if you can potentially shove a lot more oil into Steel City, you can utilize this underutilized capacity on these two legs, and it makes your project very economic and very competitive. So that was always the plan with Keystone XL, was to do that. Hey, we have all this underutilized capacity on these two legs. Why don't we use that? And we don't have to lay more pipeline or anything like that. So that was the plan with that. Now we need to theorize. Again, we have some sourcing data that says this is going to be a combination of DAPL, ETCOP, some new pipeline, and Keystone. So let's bring up Keystone again. Let's bring up DAPL. Bring up ETCOP. So I don't know exactly what this is going to look like, but it's probably going to look, and I'll create another whiteboard on a snipping tool for us here. It's probably going to look something like some new pipeline or combination of existing capacity into these areas for DAPL, where DAPL picks up its oil in the Bakken. So maybe many people don't remember, but this piece of Keystone is actually a new pipeline up here. This is new 30-inch pipeline. This horizontal piece that goes down to the Winnipeg area, that's actually a conversion of a natural gas pipeline, so that's 36 inches. So I don't know if it's possible to shove more oil in somewhere along these lines, or if they'll have to lay completely new pipeline here. And that's something important to think about for the economics of the project. The more pipeline bare steel that you have to lay, new pipeline to get to where you need to go, the more expensive this project is going to be, and the less competitive it's going to be. So if we look at like the actual flow dynamics of Dakota Access, go back to the tool. I'm going to take Keystone off for now. So you can look at DAPL, and we can look at the flows at the border here. You can see DAPL has a capacity today of 750,000 barrels a day and is flowing a little over 600, let's say 650-ish. So only 100,000 barrels a day of capacity. That's not a lot of capacity if you're planning on laying new pipe from all the way down from Hardisty, Alberta, down to the Bakken area. But what is important to think about here and to realize here is in 2019, DAPL actually permitted this pipe for sure in North Dakota and Illinois, and it's probably fine the rest of the way. I don't know for sure. But they did permit the pipe to carry 1.1 million barrels a day in both North Dakota and in Illinois. So with the addition of pump stations and probably more storage, they could push this capacity from 750 to 1.1 million barrels a day. I would like to note that this is largely a light capacity that we're talking about here. So the oil that would be coming down from Hardisty would likely be much heavier. So it wouldn't do a 1-to-1 on what the capacity could be or what the size of this project actually could be. But it seems certainly possible that they could shove, at least if we're looking at light barrels, if they're at 650 today, and they pump it up to 1.1 million barrels a day, that's 450,000 barrels a day of extra capacity. Probably somewhere 300 to 350,000 barrels a day of heavy would be my guess of what could flow through that line then. If we look further down the line, are there any constraints in ETCOP that we need to worry about? The capacity line on ETCOP is interesting. Energy Transfer isn't terribly open on what the actual capacity is. Enbridge does list it as at right around 470,000 barrels a day. But this is a 30-inch line. This could very likely be pushed quite a bit higher with it being a 30-inch line with pump stations and extra storage. So this, again, if we're thinking about it, maybe I'll bring my snipping tool back up here. This would be a project that would lay or have probably some new pipeline capacity from Hardisty down to the Bakken area, at which point it can take DAPL and ETCOP probably 300 to 350,000 barrels a day of capacity that can be pretty cheaply made on both DAPL and ETCOP with the addition of pump stations and storage. They would need to put in some capital to do that, but this is the type of project you're looking for when you're looking for good economics of a competitive project. So how does this compare to, let's take a look at like maybe some of the rates on some of the other pipelines. We can pull Enbridge's up. Let's pull up the Canadian Mainline. And I put this one in here. Tariffs out. So this is a tariff to the Gulf that they have with their joint tariff on Flanagan South Pipeline. So just for fun, why don't we put that up here? So the Canadian Mainline goes down into obviously the US. This is the Lakehead system that feeds a lot of the Midwest refineries. And then you have Flanagan South, which can take barrels down to the Cushing area. And then Flanagan has a lease on Seaway that gets them all the way to the Gulf. So if you're looking at this route from Hardisty all the way to the Gulf, it's a comparable route to what the proposed project or our theoretical proposed project of Big Sky would be. The Big Sky Pipeline is the name of the project that Energy Transfer is pitching with South Bow. You're looking at a comparable rate of about $9-ish. If we're talking about dumping the oil in Patoka, I don't have the tariff loaded on the map yet. Enbridge is actually quite a bit cheaper. It's about $4.50, somewhere between $4 and $4.50 to get from the Edmonton Hardisty area down to the Chicago area. So that is a quite a bit cheaper than this Gulf route. Maybe we see what South Bow has. I think I loaded some of these on here. Let's see what Keystone has. So if we look at Keystone rates, existing rates for Keystone into this area, let's just choose the committed 20-year. Let's do the B. So you can there's an adder on this. This tariff rate is just from the international border here down to here. There's about $1.50 tariff to get from Hardisty to the international border here. So you're looking at also about $8.59 to get to the Gulf from Hardisty on a committed tariff rate on Keystone as well. They do have rates into Patoka. I think they're a little bit more expensive than Enbridge. So we're talking about a little over $5 for that. So just to sum up and reiterate, the existing capacity on like an Enbridge pipeline or the Keystone Pipeline, if you're looking to get to the Patoka area in Illinois, you're looking at $4.50 to $5.50 for rates. And if you're looking to go down south and get to the Gulf, you're looking at probably right around $9. That's on their existing contract. So that's not to say that they can't potentially go cheaper with a project down the road, but this is a good benchmark to look at to what the economics look like. If we look at the economics, I'll pull those up and you can see those. I just did a rough calculation here of what the economics could be. So to explain this calculation a little bit, I did a few different potential costs of this project, and this is all in costs. This is between whatever South Bow would pay, or if they decide to joint venture something, whatever they would pay to lay new steel, and then on top of that, what the potential cost would be for new storage, new pump stations on DAPL and ETCOP. And again, I don't have any deep insights on what this number would be. I would say pre-COVID, you could make a pretty big pipeline, a 30-inch pipeline for several hundred miles, 400 plus miles, for under $2 billion. What it looks like in a post-COVID environment, I don't think there's been a lot of good comps that we can look at. I certainly wouldn't want to look at Trans Mountain for obvious reasons. But this should give you a benchmark of, hey, if we're looking at a 5x cost to EBITDA project and backing into what the rates would be to get to us a 5x cost to EBITDA project with 315,000 barrels a day of contracted capacity, you're looking at and these would be an average rate. So this would be an average rate, weighted average rate for deliveries to Patoka and the Gulf of anywhere between, let's call it $4 and $6.50. And that's pretty competitive. If they can get the cost of this project in $2.5 billion or below, I think it's a pretty competitive project, and it could have legs going forward. Obviously, there's regulatory concerns, there's permitting concerns with this. The new administration may help a little bit with that, but I think you still have some pretty big hurdles when you're doing things like laying bare steel in the ground, going over waterways. Maybe they can avoid some of the waterways with this project, but those are some of the risks that you face there. So hopefully this was a good overview of what our tool can do, and we're actually letting certain institutional clients beta test this at the moment, and we're releasing new pipes every week. So I'll have Energy Transfer pipes out within the next few days. We already have, let's see what we have here. We already have all Enbridge's pipelines are out, so I'll just highlight, get on the map view for you guys. Enbridge's pipelines, so I can highlight those for you. We have Plains' pipelines, Plains Oryx. So again, this is a tool that we're soft releasing and beta testing with clients. Down the road, it'll be something that we'll paywall, obviously. We do have a Substack. Our website is a Substack, is what we're using right now. All our content for now will be free. There will be a paywall that goes up eventually, but we'll always have free stuff out there. So some of my videos will just always be free. and allow you to take a look and see what we're doing. Some will be paywalled down the road, but as of right now, everything's free on the Substack. I invite you to sign up. We'll try to do one video a week at least. No promises. If there's something that's really boring, if it's a really boring week and there's not any news, I'm not gonna force a video on you guys. But yeah, that's kind of what we have to offer. Feel free to reach out to us. I'll leave email addresses in the post, or I'm sure you can reach out through the Substack. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great day.